Hey everyone, hope you're having a great weekend. You are listening to the DMZ America podcast for Saturday, March 18th, 2023. And coming to you from the left, I'm editorial cartoonist Ted Rall.
And I too am an editorial cartoonist, but named Scott Stantis, and coming from the right.
Excellent.
That all hangs together. So
we are doing this edition of the DMZ America podcast as a supplemental edition in response to the strong possibility that President Donald Trump will soon be indicted by the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin Bragg. Mr. Trump tweeted, I should say Truth Social today, and possibly tweeted as well, that he expects to be arrested and indicted on Tuesday, and on charges related to his payment of hush money to porn star Stormy Daniels. So that's how you know that everyone's staying classy. The president of the United States, if and when this goes down, will probably not face a perp walk, but there will be, for the first time in U.S. history, the arrest of a former president and possibly a future president. And there will be a mugshot of a former president of the United States. Fingerprints will be taken. It will be quite the spectacle, to say the least, with major political and legal implications. We don't know whether this is actually going to happen on Tuesday. Mainstream media outlets have been scrambling in response to Trump's news to try to find out why he's saying this. We don't really know if his attorneys have been told to present him.
And he's never lied to us before, so I think we need to.
True. So that's impossible that he would be lying, but we don't know if this is true or not. It hasn't been verified. So if you're listening to this in the near future or the distant future, and it turns out he wasn't arrested, you'll know that this is Trump saying that he was going to be arrested, but there's no confirmation from any official source that he's going to actually even be indicted, although all the signs really point in that direction, whether it happens on Tuesday or not. So, Scott, thoughts?
A lot of them, and that's why we're doing this ahead of time. We're going to try and kind of predict what we think is going to happen. And weirdly, Ted and I have been strangely right on many things the last few years. So, terrifyingly right. So here we go. First and foremost, his attorney, whose name I forget at the moment, I probably should call it up on the internet. Anyway, Alvin Bragg has said that the former president will not fight extradition, which is good. And his wording, did you see this, Ted? His wording was, there will be no, what word did he use? Not shootout, but there will be no showdown at Mar-a-Lago, which would be...
that would be epic. I want to see that.
Come out with your McDonald's over your head. How does that would have been, do you remember The Onion did This Dumb Century?
It would put DeSantis in an awkward position, right? Because Governor DeSantis would have to sign off on the extradition of his possible rival.
This, folks, get comfortable, because there's so much bullshittery about to hit the fan here that it's going to take a while for us to unpack it. That's one thing. Yeah. Could you imagine if a potential political rival had to sign the extradition papers? This happens in Paraguay. And I have to apologize to Paraguay to compare them to the United States, because to my knowledge, Paraguay has never invaded a country for its oil.
And there's really never any point, by the way, to just fight extradition within the United States, because all that happens is, in this case, Trump would be arrested by the Florida authorities pending extradition and held, waiting for the paperwork to come through and for the judge to decide what to do. They always decide to approve the extradition. So you'd be fighting an inevitability. So, it's like, once the indictment comes down, you are going to face the music. No question about it.
Right. So, okay. So they're waiving that. He's going to fly to Manhattan. As Ted has mentioned off mic, and now we're going to talk on mic. There won't be a perp walk. Get him in the back door, but there will be a mugshot. There will be fingerprints. Do they take DNA nowadays?
I think I wanted to make a joke about it being rectal only. I don't know, actually. I'm going to check that out. I would hope not. I think it's
I guess Stormy Daniels could provide it.
um, but yeah, it's like, I mean, if so, it's a grotesque. Okay, so here,
No,
any
no. What
New
do you
York
mean
State,
grotesque? Wait, wait,
any
wait, wait,
so
what's
you have to
grotesque?
be convicted of a felony or misdemeanor before they collect your DNA. So upon arrest,
Oh,
no,
okay.
but if he's
All right.
convicted, yes.
All right. So then no swabbing anywhere on his person.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So that's gonna, but we're gonna have, I mean, first of all, okay, here's the first bet I'm gonna have with my friend Ted. How long? I'm going to say 4 minutes before you can go online and buy a t-shirt of the mugshot on it.
Oh, yeah, that's so true. Well, this is going to be obviously red meat for the base. He's asking for his supporters to come out to Foley Square in Manhattan. Presumably, that's where this carnival will take place, if it does take place. He's hoping, obviously, for a repeat of some kind of January 6th kind
Absolutely.
of thing.
Absolutely.
There's been some early predictions that I've read in the last hour or so that it'll be harder to get that kind of crowd because based on the logic that this is personally just about Donald Trump, whereas with January 6th, he had convinced voters that their votes had been stolen. So their votes mattered to them. We shall see if that's true or not. I don't know.
That's a great point. Now, I mean, because that's the thing about MAGA Nation, is it? I mean, it has become a cult. It's become a cult of personality. It's been a cult of one person. It's always been the reason that I've despised it, because it's anathema to anything, to any notion of democratic governance. Their allegiance to him is, I mean, I was talking to a MAGA person the other day and said something negative about Donald Trump that was empirically true. I wish I could remember what it was. I mean, maybe a weight issue or something. Oh, by the way, I have had MAGA people say, "Why do you draw him fat?" I'm just going, because
He's not live.
He is. You know, if you've seen the pictures of him playing golf. But so this, I'm mumbling.
First of all, do you approve of this? What do you think of
Okay,
this?
let's get into that.
Let's talk about like how do we feel about it, and then let's talk about the politics. Short term.
I'm not crazy about. I'm going to touch on this for a minute more, and then we'll switch gears here. But I think he is definitely calling for a January 6th type reaction. Now, you live in Manhattan. You don't live far from where the action is going to.
No, I'm about 30 minutes by subway away.
Let's assume for a moment roughly the same number of people show up. What does that become? What does that become?
I mean, okay, first of all, there were, I think, over between 50 and 100,000 people at the main rally on January 6th. Obviously, only a small percentage of them bum rushed the Capitol building. But if you have, New York City has certainly seen crowds like that before. We had 1 million people marching peacefully in opposition to the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003. We've had concerts in Central Park, like Simon and Garfunkel in the 1980s. I think that was 500,000 people. So I personally have attended protest demonstrations against Ronald Reagan that the police said were between 10 and 20,000 people. Foley Square, which is where most of the courthouses are, the federal courts and the main state Supreme Court. This is a county DA, so this is probably going to take place at Center Street in Lower Manhattan, sort of on the south end of this big triangle. There's enough room for lots of people, and if they're peaceful, it should be pretty manageable by the NYPD. I'm kind of wondering how these MAGA people are all going to get into town, because Manhattan is, probably 85% or 80% Democratic. So these people mostly will be coming in from like the outer part, Eastern Queens, Long Island, Westchester County, all the surrounding suburbs. And
well, let me jump in and just say, for the January 6th event, there are people from all over the country, and the guys who have been convicted. But this is much shorter notice, by the way.
This is in 3 days. Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, people have to get flights, or they have to, I suspect you'd get people who you're going to get a lot of Long Islanders and New Jerseyans, and maybe some people from upstate New York. I think people will come. I don't think you're going to get that kind of crowd. I would be surprised. I think a generous turnout, a good turnout, is anything over 5,000 if you're Donald Trump. That still can make a big impression and raise a lot of cane. But frankly, NYPD does a better job than the Capitol Police does. And I expect New Yorkers and New York cops not to take as much bullshit. And also, they know what's coming this time around.
Let me ask you a quick,
because they saw January 6th on television. They know.
Follow-up question, and then like I said, we're talking about the political and legal ramifications of this thing. But in New York, I can tell you in Chicago, a massive amount of them, including the president of the Fraternal Order of Police Officers for Chicago, are real MAGA nuts. I mean, they are mouth-breathing, knuckle-dragging MAGA-ites. Is NYPD the same demographic, you think?
There's definitely a lot of Republicans. I think they're, look, cops are right wing. That's their nature. But it's not the same degree as that. I think, it's still New York City, and when you work here as a cop over time, you just can't help but sort of, even if you're commuting in from the suburbs, you can't help but become more tolerant just because it's a diverse city, and you realize when you're surrounded by diversity, you become more tolerant. So they're right wingers, but they're not. I don't think they're knuckle dragging. I don't think it's quite the same. I think they're going to be really professional, and they'll do their job. And I don't think they will I don't think, first of all, the crowd would have any interest in trying to gain access to the building, because it's not like they could stop anything if they did, unlike January 6th. And if they did, I think there would be bloodshed. I don't think it would be permitted at all. And I think everyone knows that. So I think this will be a tame protest out on the streets, carefully cordoned off. I mean, hell, they might even subject the MAGA people to what those of us on the left normally end up in, a penned off free speech zone 5 blocks away from the proceedings. So that, who knows? I don't expect the security situation to really be a big play here. I mean, first of all, I do want to say I'm very torn about this because
let's talk about this now.
But basically, I think my problem, so here's the thing. I totally believe in equal, that the law should treat everyone equally. No man is above the law, despite his many privileges, his wealth, and his power. And so that's fine with me. If this would happen to someone else, then it's fine with me that it should happen to Donald Trump, except I'm not so sure it would happen to someone else. It does feel like they were fishing for something to go after him for. So if they had found something similar about, say, Elliot Spitzer or someone like that, they wouldn't have gone so hard. I think it's just like it seems very politically motivated. The timing of it is extremely unfortunate. This is not only a declared candidate for president, he is currently the front runner for a major party presidential nomination. So it seems like it's election interference. I'm going to leave this issue to you to elaborate on, but we talked about this offline, Scott, and you brought this up. It seems penny ante compared to some of the stuff that they could probably be more patient. It seems like they're like Alvin Bragg's in a rush to be first to claim Trump's scalp, but the politics of it are bad. And my biggest concern is definitely sort of what this says about the dignity of the United States of America. Not about the dignity of Donald Trump, which was always a non-existent thing, but the dignity of the presidency of the United States of America. When you see foreign leaders like the former, like Lula, the president of Brazil, when he was arrested, Imran Khan in the standoff with Pakistani authorities who want to arrest him. The president of France, right, was arrested at one point. Not
the former. What's his name? The
little short guy.
Starts with an S.
Not Chirac, but that was a C. Anyway, the point is it's a very, very, as Trump would say, it's a very shithole country kind of look. And it makes us look as a country on the international stage like we're a clown show. Like, first of all, we elected a guy who would do something like this. Secondly, we arrest him like he's like any common citizen. Why should the president of the United States be an impressive position if this is the guy, if this can happen to it? It's just bad optics. And I think, I don't believe in the imperial presidency, but there should be a little majesty in the.
Yeah, I agree. I disagree with your assessment on that level, although we agree on a bigger picture. This is a ticky-tacky charge. They went fishing. They found something. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, okay, let me back up and say I disdain Donald Trump. I think he's a horrible, wretched human being.
Stipulated.
But guess what? The legal system of the United States defends everybody, even horrible, wretched human beings. And it's maybe even especially wretched human beings.
Well, they're the ones who need it, right? I mean, people who are,
exactly.
People who are beloved parish well, that's a bad example. But yeah, whatever. Mother Teresa. Oh wait, that's a bad example. But anyway,
Hey.
good people who are objectively good, don't really have a lot to worry about, and they can suffer an unfair parking ticket and be okay.
But people can look at this and firstly, I'm going to disagree with what you said a minute ago and say that I think the image it sends to the world is that no one is above the law in the United States.
But they know that's not true, because if that were true, almost every former, if not every former president of the United States would have been indicted for something or turned over to the ICC.
No, that may or may not be true. But my point is that I don't have a problem with the former president or, frankly, a sitting president being arrested. I honestly don't. I think the optics are fine. I think that means that if they did indeed break the law, if this wasn't politically motivated, now this is where things get interesting. And the reason I preface this by saying he's a disdainful, horrible human being is because he has done horrible, disdainful stuff, not least of which has had to pay massive fines for stealing from charities. This is a guy who's done bad stuff.
And college students.
Yeah, of course, with Trump University, paying off a porn star and some hush money. I mean, you and I could actually even say there's a case that's not against the law. Depends on where the money came from.
I think he had. That's an interesting thing. We should really explore the legal aspect. I don't know that this is an open and shut case. Don't forget that the former
I agree.
DA did not believe. This is a new DA, and the former DA, who was outgoing, looked into this and did not believe that the prosecution, the people of New York, would prevail against Donald Trump. They believed that the defendant would prevail, and I think he does have a strong defense. He can definitely say, look, what's the charge here? The main charge here is misappropriation of campaign funds, because Donald Trump is so fucking broke / cheap that he didn't want to use his own $150K. So he basically laundered the money through Michael Cohen, his attorney, to make this payment. Now, it is pretty ticky-tacky stuff, even though it might amount to a felony technically. But it's basically a campaign finance law violation. But what constitutes a legitimate campaign expense? Well, certainly if you're a politician, settling a legal claim that could be an embarrassment is you could really claim that you believed that was a legitimate campaign expense. It was related to your campaign. You might not have needed to do that if you weren't planning to run for political office. So the thing is, this is not a civil claim. This is a criminal claim, and Bragg has to convince 12 New Yorkers, good and true, beyond a reasonable doubt, unanimously, that this was that Trump knew what he was doing here. I don't know. I mean, Trump's also relying on the advice of his lawyer, who's now testifying against him, who's already spent time in jail and been convicted of a crime and caught lying under oath. That's their number one witness. The defense is going to tear Michael Cohen apart for being they're going to say, this case is built entirely on the word of a liar, a convicted liar.
Right.
You're going to believe him? He's just trying to save his own skin.
Well, I also,
Are they wrong?
it does make me curious to think that you're going to have, how do you find a jury of peers to Donald Trump, who's pretty convinced he has none? I mean,
You mean like some people have no opinion about Donald Trump or have
well,
never
no,
heard of him?
that's one way to go. Or how do you, maybe, I guess you'd have to have family members. It's like,
Have
it,
Tiffany on the, hey, I hardly ever heard of the guy.
well, what is it? Eric, who looks dumb enough to really not know who? No, that's not Donald. That's Dad.
Yeah, I mean, who would?
Anyway.
I mean, seriously, it's like it. I mean, seriously, voir dire is going to be a major problem. I mean, how the fuck do you find 12 people who don't have any opinion about Donald Trump?
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. So yeah, I mean, you and I it's funny that we disagree on the reason, but we agree on the outcome, which is that we both think it's ticky tacky and small potatoes, and this should not be prosecuted. Listen, again, I hate the guy. I'd love to see the guy, clamped in irons and sent
It's
to
not
jail
that he
for a
doesn't
real
deserve
reason.
it.
No, of course not. I mean, he was a developer in Manhattan, for Christ's sake. They all, according to my friend Ted, they all deserve it.
That's true. Look, seriously, he deserves it 50 times over for a million different things. In my opinion, they always should have got the Democrats should have impeached him over emoluments.
Absolutely.
Should have been prosecuted over emoluments.
Absolutely.
That's where they should have gotten him. And I don't know why, I still think they're dancing around that because look at Biden. Apparently Biden sort of does emolument-y type stuff too, apparently.
Oh no, that's just God. The story is coming out. I'm sorry. It's just like it's a friggin' mafia. The Biden family business of Delaware. It's
Who knew Delaware had so much graft?
This is, I mean, yeah, it's really big. I mean, this story, and now Hunter Biden suing what does he think he's going to get out of a little shop that fixes computers, by the way? He's suing the shop for,
Well, it's kind of a countersuit, sort of. I mean,
is it?
Well, the computer shop owner whose name escapes me, he sued Hunter last year for defamation because Hunter said in public that he had basically stolen the data and that he had no right to do that. He's claiming that he didn't steal the data and had every right to do that. So now Hunter, I think this is more of a sort of it's a counterclaim. It's like trying to weaken. It's a negotiating position. I've got to ask, do you think Hunter had any kind of discussion with his father? His father's about to announce for re-election. He's going to run a campaign. Did he say, hey, Dad, I got to do this, but I know it's going to fuck up your re-election campaign next year to have all this shit coming out in court next year at the same time you're running for re-election. Do you mind? Are you cool with that? I mean, do you think they've not talked about it? I mean, I don't get it.
I don't think there's a lot of discussion. And quite frankly, I don't think even if you had a discussion with Joe Biden, it doesn't really sink in.
But they have, I mean, with Jill, who's basically the Mrs. Wilson of this administration.
Yes.
I mean, seriously, I mean, I don't understand. Do you think there's been no coordination, or do you think they know exactly what they're doing?
They don't. This does not seem coordinated. I think Hunter Biden is a sad soul, and do
you think he's rogue here? He's just looking out for numero uno.
Yeah, I think his attorney said we got to do this. Just do it. Yeah, I mean, what's the big deal? No one's paying attention.
It's not like the press is interested in this story. Well,
so
apparently not. Only the.
Oh yeah.
I mean, press is interested.
God, I cannot tell you how much shit I take, Ted, because I continually say, and I say this about everything. And I say this about, I've said this about Trump. I've said this about, people who are on my side. I say, but if there's a charge and there seems to be some smoke, then let's see if there's fire. That's all I say about this stuff. And the raft of crap I take on shit like that. Same for you. You go, my God, you get the same stuff. I mean, it's probably worse.
It's incredibly stupid. But let's get back to Trump. So politically, what happens next? I mean, do you think this moves that? First of all, this doesn't preclude him from running for office. We agree on that.
No.
I mean, he can replicate the famous Eugene Debs for president 1920 button. Prisoner number 4772 for president.
Yes.
Brilliant. Do you think if you were, we talked about this offline when this news broke. earlier, I suggested that Trump might want the perp walk and negotiate not to get rid of it, because the mugshot is going to be a symbol of weakness. And Donald Trump really understands imagery, whereas the perp walk, he could appear defiant in the way that he walks, in the way that he's dressed. He could wear his MAGA hat to that. He can't do that at the photo.
No, and the other thing is on
The
mug
photo, like the
shots.
authorities control the mugshot, but he
Yes
would
and no. Don't forget,
control the perp walk, and he can talk to the press as he's being let in. They'll be like, Donald, and he can talk to them as he's being let in.
but he can't stop. He's going, and he'll be handcuffed, which is a really bad look. You talk about emasculating. I think if they can avoid the perp walk, they would avoid the perp walk. The mugshot is going to be one of two things. I forget the elected official. Damn it. A Republican, obviously. They all seem to be. But he smiled. And it was really smart because the mugshot, and it wasn't some shit-eating grin.
Because it's going to be all over the place.
Well, you see the mugshots of guys who are caught, who are driving
Nolte,
high.
He looks like he was run over by a car.
Well, yeah, you can look like this, or you can go. But I think it's going to be, you can go one of two ways. And knowing Trump, it's going to be the Mussolini.
That would be a mistake.
Well, but that's he
always has this thing too, like the
elected official thing. Grin. I forgot. I can't remember his name. He was damn.
No, he really should do the toothy grin, like,
Yeah, that's what this elected official did, and so you can't really make fun of it because it's not. You don't go.
Yeah, you can't be like, oh, what a loser. Yeah,
you should make it look like it's like it's
like your PR shot, because it is.
Yeah. Or you can do one of those.
I remember like when the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke, the only photo that was circulating was from her White House ID, because that was all that the reporters could get. So her mother rushed her into a studio to have a professional take photos of her. Pardon?
I didn't know that.
And then she released, the mother, Mrs. Lewinsky, released the photos to the media so that they would, and she was like, hey, I have better photos of my daughter. And that way she would look better in these articles.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So the mugshot, you're going to get, it's going to be a mugshot. It's going to have, Trump D and some number underneath it. But if I was advising him, I'd say stand up straight,
smile,
and smile.
Totally. I think he will do that. I do not think he will be like,
No, I think he will. I think that
would be a bad move.
Every time he goes on, his followers, and so the political fallout.
Fuck yourselves, bitches.
His followers are going to go ape shit because they all feel aggrieved. They all feel like victims. They're all snowflakes. So they're going to go, and they're going to go nuts. They are going to go nuts. Now, between now and the election, will there be political violence? Yeah. I think you're going to see the Tim McVeighs are going to be motivated to do whatever they do. The MAGA guys now are really feeling like they stole the election.
And now they're arresting our guy.
Yeah. And all of these, it's weird.
He's being he's absolutely martyrized. No question about it.
Yeah. This is how,
like, on the other hand, the flip side is like, if you don't arrest him and he deserves it, I mean, do you not arrest him even though he deserves it because you're worried about that perception? I mean,
I think that has to come into consideration, into the balance. You have to think about that. But if it was a real charge, I mean, that's the thing. I'm going to withhold.
And there are other charges pending. Let's not forget.
Yes. Yeah. So let's wait for this. So this is the first one out of the gate. And it's always what happens with Trump.
By the way, I think inciting 9/11, 1/6 would be the way to go. That would also, there is an investigation underway. Incitement to riot is a felony. It's serious, and it's happens to be true and appropriate.
Yeah, it does. But the thing is, in the left and the people who hate Donald Trump are so rabid and so riled up that they tend to they don't keep their powder dry. They fire as soon as they can. And he gets charged with weird stuff and stuff that, not the toughest stuff. Like you said, the impeachment. I mean, the stuff that he was impeached at, the Russia stuff. I mean, that turned out to be absolutely untrue and made up.
Yep.
In large part. But the emolument stuff, I mean, no, that's absolutely impeachable. Absolutely. No question about it, and should have impeached him. But they couldn't wait. They could not wait. And so, because, the Trump derangement syndrome, which is a real thing, we have some friends who are cartoonists suffer from it.
We all know, everybody listening to us now or watching us knows that that's a thing. Scott, what about his people? I mean, I guess there's kind of like, let's parse this out. Will this arrest, assuming this arrest takes place and there's, a criminal proceeding against him, how does this affect A, MAGA Republicans, B, non-Trump or sort of flexible, but non-necessarily Trump Republicans? And how does it affect Democrats? I mean, like, how do you think the needle moves politically?
No.
So his people are there no matter what.
On the contrary.
So his people are more motivated.
Oh my God.
Now, what about anti-Trump Republicans? I've already seen some commentary from non-Trump or anti-Trump Republicans.
Oh, what are you hearing?
That you are seeing there. You're seeing complaints where this is being called a Republican lawmakers are calling this politically motivated. They are they're saying that this is something like Kevin McCarthy, who is not really, he's one of those, like, he goes either way. I don't mean it that way, but Donald Trump said that this is an outrageous abuse of power by a radical DA who lets violent criminals walk as he pursues political vengeance against President Trump. So that's a big statement. Of course, obviously, Marjorie Taylor Greene, J.D. Vance, Elise Stefanik. I don't know that she's really a huge Trumpy. She's the chairwoman of the House Republican Conference, said the radical left is having Trump arrested because they know they can't defeat him in an election. She said it's un-American and reaching a dangerous low of third world countries. Lindsey Graham also says they're making stuff up that they never used against anybody because they hate Trump. He said the case is moving forward because they're afraid of Trump. Vivek Ramaswamy, who's a conservative entrepreneur, who is a relatively minor candidate for the Republican nomination, said Trump being indicted would be a national disaster. And Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, said that it's a weak case based on a strained, convoluted legal theory. So I think obviously pro-Trump I think Republicans are going to they're going to feel pressured to close ranks behind the former president, don't you think?
Some are. I mean, as a never Trump Republican, you hear how I'm talking. This is deeply disturbing. I would not, why a lot of the language you just quoted is, hyperbolic. I think that it's not off the mark, that a lot of people and a lot of Americans and a lot of middle Americans are going to look at this and go, they're going to look at Alvin Bragg and they're going to go, okay, this guy, wants to make a name for himself. This guy is far, far left. This guy has way overreach on this one. And that it does smack of political vendetta. And you do that, then you make the guy who's being arrested a martyr, and you increase his standing with people. And I would not to mention,
I've got to say, liberal gloating is only going to feed into that. And there is
and it's going to be. I haven't been
much liberal gloating.
I haven't been on Twitter since Trump's little comments this morning. What you have been? What have they been saying?
I have not. I have not seen it, but you just know. You just know. Yeah. It has to be. I mean, people are turning cartwheels.
Yeah, which is a massive. I mean, even if this was, someone who I disdained on the left, I would still not be turning cartwheels. But I'm not that kind of guy. I always wait and see. Let's see what the charges are. Let's see what evidence there is. Let's see what the validity is. And then we go forward and say, okay, this is a big case. This just smells and like such ticky-tacky stuff, Ted, that it's really going to piss off the American people. The American people really don't like injustice. they certainly don't like the legal system because let's face it, we have all been a victim of it. You get a speeding ticket and you say, I wasn't going that fast. Really, you're going to spend, X amount of dollars and 2 days fighting this thing, or you're just going to shell up your money. We've all been screwed by a system that we know or our sense is not entirely on our side. And now, this is happening, and if this can happen to Donald Trump, this can happen to you. There's something to be said for that. I think ultimately this is a massive mistake. And I think it's a massive miscalculation by this DA. And it's really going to unleash a torrent of political violence, the likes of which I can't predict where this will percolate up, but it will.
Now, we have to consider, like, what if now there's definitely, again, I want to reiterate, there's no evidence, much less proof, that this arrest really will go down on Tuesday, but it's pretty clear that an indictment is coming down the pike, right? I mean, based on everything that's happened so far, all the signals point in that direction. The New York Times reported on that about a week ago. There's been just the grand jury appears to have either arrived at that conclusion or they're about to. So, so we might be talking about something prematurely, but I guess the question here is there anyone, I guess this is for my Democratic friends, is there any world in which people who might have once liked Donald Trump and supported him think, okay, this is a bridge too far. He is a turd. He wanted to bribe Stormy Daniels. It's gross. I can't have anything to do with him anymore.
No, if they haven't done it by now, why would they? Why start? I mean, no. No. That's the short answer, and it's the long answer. No.
Yeah. No,
if they haven't been despoiled,
but you know better than me on this.
If they haven't been despoiled of him by now, then I mean, come on, Ted. I mean, is there any disgusting part of this man's, slime that they aren't aware of and they're willing to tolerate?
So I was scrolling through Twitter and there's mostly outrage from conservatives against this news. There are, I will say, two very, very funny memes. One is photoshopped versions of Putin and Trump sleeping outside as homeless people and begging for money. But my personal favorite is a picture of very, very tiny handcuffs. Sorry, cartoonist friends. That idea is now a meme.
Yeah, well, but some of our that doesn't slow down some of our cartoonist friends, believe me.
No, unfortunately, that's true.
We'll just take memes and reuse them. That's hilarious. So that is very funny. Whenever I draw former President Trump, I've always drawn him with the tiny little hands. But
yeah, me too.
Have you?
Yeah. Okay, the short-fingered vulgarian, I believe it was, that Graydon Carter, the publisher and editor of Vanity Fair, called him. That's how he got the moniker about his small hands. His hands are a little small on the small side. I wouldn't say they're not like teeny tiny little micro hands.
No, they're not freakish. Let me get back to this. I mean, do you agree with my analysis or do you disagree? I mean, which is fine.
No, I do agree with your analysis, Scott. I mean, I don't think, I think this is a Pyrrhic victory for the left. Enjoy it while you can. It increases the chances that Donald Trump will Grover Cleveland his way back to the presidency. All you've done is, you've stirred up what you really want to make Donald Trump go away. You want to make him unappealing, boring, old hat, seem undynamic and non-exciting. This does the opposite of all that. It puts him at the absolute center of the action. It makes him look like a fighter who's beleaguered, which is always where he's been best framed for his people. He's gonna, some part of him loves this. So and it's going to show. I mean, he's good at this. There's not going to be any shame. He's not going to Al Franken and like wither away and go and hide under a rock. So, I think this is I agree with your analysis, Scott, 100%.
Okay. Well, we'll know Tuesday, I suppose. Maybe
Tuesday, or, I'm going to bet that this is actually happening within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Maybe, probably not on Tuesday.
I don't know. He was awfully specific about, that's an awfully saying Tuesday's when this is going to happen. So it really does make one think.
Indict myself on Tuesday.
Well, but don't forget, think about all of the moving parts that it's going to take to do this, Ted. You've got Secret Service, you've got, this is a former president of the United States. This is I can't believe they're going to put him in a holding cell.
I doubt they would do that, or they might leave the door open. We had he
escapes.
We had a cartoonist colleague who I think you will know who I'm talking about, who was, well, this won't narrow the story down very much. Who was an alcoholic. And, but I think you know the story, but anyway, I went to a party at his house, and he had just a month or two earlier been in a crazy drunken bender where he was chased down a major city street by the local police at high speeds, lost control. Because he's a cartoonist, he was obligated to hit the fire hydrant and have the fire hydrant explode.
Of course.
And because, the only thing he didn't do was slip on a banana peel, and took out totaled his own car and a couple of parked cars. And anyway, so the cops dragged him down to the station, and he proceeded to tell me this story. And he said, like, they were very polite, and they were like, "We're really sorry, sir. We have to put, that we have to put you in the cell, but we'll leave the door open so you can use our bathroom down the hall. You don't have to use the gross hole in the corner." They woke up the bailiff in the middle of the night and had him come down and get him out, like after 2 hours. And then finally they said, "We're really sorry to have to inconvenience you, but with the hundreds of thousands of dollars in property damage, blah, 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 blah." And he said that he turned to the cops and said, "Fuck you."
You're going to have to tell me who this is, because I don't know who this is.
I bet you could guess who this is. But I'll say he's a very, very famous cartoonist, one that you deeply admire. Anyway, won
Charles
a lot of
Schultz? Good grief.
Oh my God. I'm not going to tell stories out of school, but suffice it to say that I did work at his syndicate as an executive, and I heard stories. There were stories about him, but we shall not talk about that now.
Okay.
So, I have always wanted to write a book basically about, like, you won't draw in this town again. Basically, like, just about like the weird insider stories about American cartooning, because cartooning was so massive at one time that, like, it was routine for Fortune's highest income Americans, for 5 out of 10 of them to be cartoonists. And and they were, it was like minting money. We were a powerful profession, and there are a lot of crazy stories, close to very famous people, and these stories are kind of all going to die with us, because but it was an interesting subculture. We were dinosaurs, we ruled the world, and now not so much. But
my first
someone
Reuben
should
Awards,
write a book.
Yeah, I've told you a couple of stories, and you told me some stories. I can remember there's a thing called the Reuben Awards, which is effectively the Oscars for cartooning, and some cartoon, famous.
I think it's more like the Grammys, but okay.
The Tonys, the People's Choice Awards.
More like the Grammys, in that, like, it sort of does nothing to do with quality at all. No pretense of it.
No, that's true. It's
just basically true. Whoever they like best.
But just walking into the men's room and having some famous cartoonists doing lines of coke on the marble counter there, and going to another cartoonist suite where it was pretty much a scene from Caligula. It was just it was very strange. Charles Schultz was not among them, by the way. I just want to backtrack on that.
You don't know that.
Yes, I very specifically, Charles Schultz
in the Snoopy outfit.
Is that Furby? Is that a Furby? Is that what they're called?
Furry. Furby is an old stuffed animal type.
It wasn't a thing that talked. The first thing that could actually. Okay, yeah, he was the furries or whatever. Yeah, Charles Schultz was a furry. Jesus, he was not.
Yeah, that would be like in Repo Man, like that famous soliloquy, like John Wayne was a fag. It's like, no, he wasn't. He was too, you boys. I installed two-way mirrors in his pad in Brentwood. It's like, lots of guys like to watch their wives fuck other men, don't you? It's like, no. He was too, you boys. Anyway, all right.
Well, we've devolved to that.
We have devolved totally to the point where we should pull the plug on this.
Yes. Okay, so
emergency episode of the DMZ America podcast.
Yeah, let's see if this Tuesday, if things happen as the former president says they will, if they unfold the way we think they will, it's going to be that's why we keep watching it, folks.
All right. Well,
where
Scott,
can we see your stuff, Ted?
Pleasure. So, Scott, where can everybody find your stuff in between episodes of the pod?
So you flip this. Yeah. By the way, the hat I'm wearing means Ted, not Trump. I just want people to be aware of that who are watching this on video. Go to gocomics.com/Scott Stantis, one word, and see my editorial cartoons. Go to gocomics.com/Prickly City, and you can see my political comic strip. You can go to chicagotribune.com/opinion and see a gallery of my work there that I do for them. You can go to Dallas News to see the work I do for the Dallas Morning News. And so, Ted, where can we see all things Ted?
And just for the record, the Scott Stantis tattooed onto my scalp next to the 666 means,
wow, look at that.
Yeah. You can go to raw.com and look at my work, sputniknews.com. Today, Saturday, I'm on whowhatwhy.org, and you can go to gocomics.com/Ted Rall. Thanks everyone for listening. We will have a regular podcast later this coming week, and in between as necessary. Thanks for listening to the DMZ America podcast.
See ya.
Ciao.